So the Highland Tracks are really nice pieces of property, kind of split between two separate tracks. Very diverse properties. A lot of aspen, a lot of oak, pretty much in equal acreages, just around 600 acres each cover type, and it transitions very quickly. So we go from aspen to oak. We got a little topography. We're down into some wetlands, some really nice swamp hardwoods and conifers. Just a couple of water features, and some duck ponds out there that really offer a lot of diversity for wildlife and really kind of some hunting opportunity to make some scenic property to have. We also have some pretty nice road infrastructure on that track. We've been doing some active management here over the last couple of years. So again, really lending to that diversity aspect. A lot of different age classes that we find out on that property. I see a lot of wildlife, a lot of deer, a lot of grouse that utilize the tracks in Highland. The aspen on that tract is much more a very diverse age group in there. There's probably 10 to 15% of it that's harvestable today. Another 20% that's coming due here in the next 10 years or so. And a lot of, there's a good amount of that aspen that's found within the oak stands. So smaller patches that could lend themselves to making some really nice habitat diversity in the future. Not only harvesting that aspen, but harvesting the oak around it, which also has been thinned out. We probably haven't been all that aggressive with a lot of the oak on the Highland Tracks. There's some real potential in there to generate some revenue. Both tracks have road systems that run almost completely through. The one tract on the east side does have a road system that runs all the way from Highway A on the top to Beauregard Lake Road on the bottom. You can drive that whole property all the way through. Very accessible property. The roads on the west side run deep into the property. They don't all connect, but you can get just about anywhere on that property with the road system. 2 40-acre parcels on the Highland Tracks that haven't been bound up by the conservation easement. We have opportunities to build on those, maybe a hunting shack or a cabin. Since they are enrolled in the MFL program, but there are ways to withdraw some property from that enrollment to really do whatever a new landowner would like to do with those properties. The conservation easement on the Highland Tracks applies to everything but those 2 parcels. It allows open access to the public for hunting, recreation opportunities. Everything is restricted to foot access only, so there's no motorized access, 4-wheelers, under that conservation easement. And then the conservation easement also does require that we do annual monitoring with the DNR. And a lot of that monitoring and the requirements of it are covered under the MFL program with the timber management and the forest management practices that we're committed to with that. The conservation easement, as far as forest management is concerned, is really unrestrictive. There's some language in there that just dictates we aren't harvesting at any kind of unsustainable levels, which we don't do anyways. And through the MFL program, again, we're monitored on that as well. So with the silvicultural practices that are pretty standard throughout the lake states, we're not coming anywhere near any of those restrictions set forth by the conservation easement, and can still generate fairly steady revenue from timber harvesting. This property sits right between 2 big players in the timber markets, one in Hayward and one in Cloquet. And that proximity really makes this some attractive, especially on the aspen. Both of those mills utilize aspen quite heavily. And so with the all-weather access that we have on this sandy ground, and the type of timber that we see in those aspen stands, they're pretty desirable species in short hauls, which make the logistics really quite easy for turning around some revenue on this property. The oak and hardwood logs are a pretty strong market here. There's a couple of smaller sawmills in the area, plus some bigger sawmills that get around this area and buy quite a bit of timber. For the quality of the timber, I'd rate it about a 7 to 8 out of 10. Really, what drives the timber revenue, quality of the harvest. And just the fact that the proximity to the markets and the all-weather ground out here really lends well to getting in here when you need to and when you need to react to the market. So it's pretty desirable property as far as that's concerned for selling timber. For the size of property, it is going to be a very affordable property. I don't see a lot of this stuff on the market. It's kind of unique and very manageable, I think, for somebody to own and manage. We have a management history on the property, and I think it's kind of laid out pretty well for the next 50 or so years. With that conservation easement and the MFL, the overhead on this property is going to be pretty minimal, and just the returns that you're going to get back off the property are going to help make this a low-cost ownership. We've done a lot of the legwork since we've owned the property. Everything's laid out for the next landowner. Moving into this property is going to be a lot easier with all of everything that we've done than it is starting off with a fresh property that hasn't been managed before. Again, the diversity of the property is something that I think is overlooked a little bit, especially since we've been harvesting timber. There is that opportunity to keep harvesting timber. The Highland properties really have a diversity of species and different products that can be harvested from the property, as well as how they're set up and how they kind of vary throughout the property allows that recreational and wildlife habitat opportunity to create such diversity. Really draw a lot of wildlife to the property, maintain the road infrastructure. From a forester standpoint, kind of a fun property to work with.